What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the HVAC Uncensored Podcast. You know, we always start off with those companies who show love to the show and they keep us going every week. Guys, if you missed the show, the special episode last week with my friends over at Company Cam, check this out. The only app every HVAC company needs, Company Cam, makes it dead simple to communicate, document, and problem solve with your technicians no matter where you are. Company Cam brings documentation, communication, and liability protection together in one simple, easy-to-use app for you and your entire team. Take unlimited photos and videos, share custom reports, create flawless before and afters, and even communicate and share progress with property owners with galleries and project timelines, all from your smartphone. Company Cam is the only app that every HVAC company needs. Goes right into CRMs, extensions. It works with most of them, except for a few. But guys, check it out at companycam.com/HVAC Uncensored. Go get a free 14-day trial. And if you like it, just for being a part of HVAC Uncensored Nation, you will get 50% off of your first 2 months. Don't say I never did anything for you. All right. Company Cam, go check them out. Next is going to be my friends over at Yellow Jacket. As most of you know, I'm a second generation HVAC tech, 20 plus years in the trade, but I always think back to those days working with my dad that I cherish so much. My dad always said your tools are an extension of yourself. If you buy quality tools and you take care of them, they'll take care of you. Most of the time, you only have to buy them once. Well, that brand I think back to is Yellow Jacket. They've been making quality products for 70 years and counting, making them right here in the US of A, not sending it overseas. If you're looking for quality tools you can depend on to get the job done, then look no further than our friends over at Yellow Jacket. Yellow Jacket has been trusted by my family for generations, and we don't plan on stopping now. Remember, 70 years of expertise built into every tool. All right, thank you to today's sponsors, and let's get on to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless the United States, and thank you to all those men and women who defend it.
Five, four, three, two, one. Go! Welcome to the #1 rated HVAC podcast. If you're looking to grow in the HVAC industry, then you're in the right spot. Blue collar people talking about blue collar shit. Let's get better together. So turn up the volume, buckle your seatbelt, and let's welcome your host, Gil KV Jr.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to HVAC Uncensored Podcast. Hope you guys are having a great Wednesday night. Thank you for being here. Hello in the chat, Mr. Zeke, everything HVAC. I appreciate you guys. Guys, great show tonight, man. And it is a fan favorite, a show favorite. He's been on several times. It is always a blast when he's here. So guys, if you can help put your hands together and welcome a show favorite, the one and only Uncle Pete Ramsey. How you doing, sir? Oh, I forgot to mute. Oh, sorry. I forgot to unmute you, Uncle Pete. My bad.
But I said, chill, pill, Gil. How you doing?
I'm good. Good. It's good to see you again. It's been a little bit.
Yeah, it has, man. Last time I was on, you had Kelly on. You guys were doing your thing as a team, and I like where you're taking things. I miss Kelly, of course, but I like what you're doing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was definitely different. Losing Kelly. I mean, me and Kelly have been doing this since day one. So when you lose, it's kind of like losing your right arm. So,
yeah,
I didn't know if I was going to keep going after that. I'll be honest. I thought maybe, hey, we had a good run. Let's call it a day. And I something about it made me keep doing it. And so far, so good. So, thank you. I appreciate that because it was different. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Sometimes change is good. Sometimes you just got to dig deeper and get a little bit more focused and get something fresh out of it, repetition will take you so far, then it's time to recreate and reinvent,
No, that's for sure. And it's definitely, it's put, even though I did a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, when you have that other person to count on you, like, hey, it's Wednesday, it's such and such time, where you at, to hold you accountable. When you don't have that person, you got to hold yourself accountable,
Yeah, I was thinking about my buddy Dennis Homan over. He used to work for Carrier Distributor, and now he does mostly financial and mindset training. But he co-sponsors our mastermind groups, and I just can't imagine it without him. I get that 100%. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, we all got somebody. Hey, for everybody of you out there watching, if you haven't, been a fan of the show for a long time, or if you've been living under a rock and you don't know who Uncle Pete or Pete Ramsey is, I guess give them a brief overview. Let them know who Uncle Pete is.
So, yeah, I'm just an older version of you guys. I was a service tech, started with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers way back in 1982. So that makes me old.
I wasn't born yet.
I know, right? But, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers did that for many years, became a service technician in the civilian world, did that for several years, started my company, heating and air conditioning company in North Carolina, did that for about 10 years. And decided when I went through a divorce to sell the company. And so I did that and went to work for Lennox. About 13 years, worked for Goodman for a little bit. Wasn't quite the same culture, but it was still fun. And now I teach. I work with other business owners. But I'm service tech at heart, but I've definitely been a salesperson. I teach sales. I've been a business owner. I coach business owners, and I've got the cuts. I've got the scars. And I know what it takes. And I just appreciate you guys out there that are, going through what I did. It's not easy. It's not for everybody. That's for sure.
It's definitely not. And everybody out there watching, I've had several different people on the show that do similar things that Uncle Pete does. But I will tell you this, Uncle Pete is the only one that I back 100% to a T. And anybody who knows me and knows me personally knows that. If people ask me, he's the name that I recommend. Not saying some of the others aren't good and I'm not friends with them and they don't do good stuff. But if I had to recommend someone to you, 100% that I would feel 100% honest doing that. And I know that you would get what you're supposed to get. It would be Uncle Pete. So just so you all know that from the get-go. That's why he's been on the show 4 times.
Thank you, Gil. Appreciate that.
No, you're welcome. So let everybody know what you got going on now. I know Mr. Zeke's in here. He's involved in some of your stuff.
Yeah. Zeke's a really good example. We are working together and have been working together on several programs, but the primary one is called the HVAC X Factor. And for those of you who've heard of, my brand, it's HVAC Greatness. And HVAC Greatness isn't me, not me at all. I'm not the great one. What it's about is you, the contractor, and how to allow your best qualities to bleed through so that your customer actually can get it. They can see that you're worth a little bit more money, right? They can see that you're worth waiting for. They can see that your services, are worth setting other competition and their numbers aside and staying with what works. You've always heard the expression, you get what you pay for, but Grandpa said a long time ago, either way you go, you get your money's worth. And if you're working from a place of, good values of honesty and integrity, and you take pride in your work, if you're that kind of a person, then this is the kind of program that hopefully is designed to allow your customer to see that. And that's been the disconnect for so many people. So yeah, with Zeke and a few others, we started talking about that X factor. What is that thing that you have that your very best customers love? And what is it that we're missing? What can we work on? And so we come up and we figure out what that is. We look into every aspect of it, and we take that, and what comes out of it is certain values and qualities that are based on your why, and your story, and all the things that lead up to, your brand identity and its personality and all this other stuff that sounds like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, woo woo stuff, but it's actually real. You actually arrive at a personality, and people like people. And so when your company becomes a bit like a person, it has a lot more magnetic attraction, if you will. And so just getting through those exercises and work to get to that point. A lot of people don't like this. I didn't like it going in and asking myself some of these questions. But once you get through that, then you can take and implement the strategies. And so what we did was we come up with a simplified business model for HVAC, right? We just, you brought up Victor Rancour the other day, and so many people look up to him, and I can see why, because, he, like so many, is out there just crushing it, But for me to go out and try to be like him, I'm not saying I couldn't do that. I'm just saying I wouldn't be happy because I'm not the same person that he is. And I have, one of my hugest values are, and I'm not saying that his isn't, from what I know of him, I really like. One of my biggest values is family. And so when I started organizing my business, I said, well, what would my business have to look like so that I could spend X amount of time at home and only X amount of time at work and still generate the dollars to build this life that I want to create for my family? And so when you start at that level, even at a spiritual level, what would that look like spiritually? You start to reverse engineer this business, and you realize you can't do all this stuff and be all over the place and be at home at the same time. So you at some point you have to make some decisions and kind of dial into something and make your business, unique to you, adapted to your personality and your values and things like this. And I think, talking about Zeke, he's a good example. He's taking the business over from his dad, and now mom's been sick, and dad was sick, and and he had to get away from the business and go to family, like you, with what you're going through with your mom. We've got to know our priorities and where where our hearts are, and if we don't have our business in a place that it's there for us when we need it, then we haven't laid the groundwork. We haven't set the foundation right. And we're only setting ourselves up for some tough times in the future. So I detoured a little bit on that, but that's what the core values or the core pillars of the identity is about. It's we call it your unique power identity. Unique power identity. And that comes after, talking to you and extracting this out. And it's very close related to your unique service or services, the way you approach your service. And what you're doing is you're stepping into your market and not saying, hey, I do HVAC too. You're stepping in and saying, I'm the only one in town that's this. And it was built on, there's several people that do this, but the strategy of the book called The Blue Ocean Strategy. Have you read that one by any chance, Gil?
I haven't, but for some reason, I want to feel like Kelly, because Kelly was big on books. I want to feel like he said something about that one.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of half Kelly and half you. I like to go out and live life through my eyes. I was one of those guys that I could watch sports on TV, but I'd much rather go play. I just want to be in the game. And so, but a lot of people will take their ideas from good books, and I do that as well. So try to strike that balance. But I love the concept of that book, and it was a fresh reminder of what you and I know based on what we've experienced as consumers and as business owners and managers. And that is that the red ocean that's just bloodied with waters from your competition of fighting over that same little bit of business is not the place to be when you contrast it to the blue ocean, where you're setting up a business and there's no real competition and you're the only one that's fishing those waters. And so by identifying your power identity, unique power identity, How can I do heating and air conditioning, but be so unique that people, when they think of X, they think of me? Or how can I approach it? And what would that service look like? Am I the, Pete's ductless? That's all I do? Or is it something more about my approach? Now, once you have these identities, you also have to let the customer perceive that. And so that's a huge part of it. I call that the insta-rapport customer experience. So that when you're in service techs, customer advisor, customer consultant, whatever, when you're in interacting, the customer's going, wow, this is different. Wow, this is great. And this goes beyond putting on booties, guys. This is an actual, it's an actual deeper connection, which leads to the fourth pillar and the final pillar, and that's your marketing. And it's called emotional marketing, because it's when you market to the emotion, it's then that you trigger a response or a reaction. And so those are the four pillars. But yeah, we go through the whole exercise, and I'll give you a real quick example. Now, this is all made up. So if I had to tell my story, and I'm looking at, okay, what's my story? What was my challenge? What was my why and all this other stuff? I dig into my past, and my true story was I was in the U.S. Army. I was in the Corps of Engineers, 52 Charlie, which is heating, air conditioning, refrigeration. And when I was in the military, they had SOPs, right? Standard operating procedures. And so when I go to work on a system, I had my book, I check this, check that, check that. When you're working on heating, air conditioning system there, you've got a very well-structured and thorough system, almost like a pilot getting ready to take off. Check, 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 check. He does not trust that to just memory when he's getting ready to get up off the ground. And so when I came over into the civilian world, this is just part of the story, right? I went to work for these contractors, and they basically threw me out there and said, go fix it. And as long as you come up to a solution that gets the equipment running, that's good enough. And so I realized that, the customers aren't really getting what they're paid for. The technicians are not really getting any satisfaction on getting in there and doing a real good, thorough job. You know how it feels good to find troubleshoot and find that one problem, but it really feels good to step back away from the job and say, I did that, and look at that, right? And so in the business, the reputation. So when I created my company, I thought, okay, I was an engineer in the Army, I'm in heating and air. How about the comfort engineer? So from this, I can come up with an identity, right? And so the visual aspects and all the personality comes in later, but then I can tell my story that, I was in the Army, we did it right, come in the civilian world, they didn't. So I created a company that does it right. So here at the comfort engineer company, we do X. And so from this, you have to figure out, what is my unique marketing message? What is it that I can say that makes me different? And I'm going to steal Zeke's here, because Zeke and I went through this, because he's got a very meticulous diagnosis system that goes beyond just what's broke. I mean, he's looking around. He's proactively bringing things to their attention, saying, this is running, maybe running for a while, but I'm here to tell you, it's not 100% anymore, and it is starting to go. It's starting to show wear, and so we're putting this over in our concern category, right? And we're watching it, unless you want to take care of that while we're here. This type of thing, right? And so he has this, and he has it on his maintenance program. So when he markets, he says it this way. I have to go back and read it. And he says, "Why settle for an HVAC contractor when you can have a professional comfort advisor? JC Warner, a different kind of comfort company." And so he's created his blue ocean, not by saying being a non-heating and air, but being a cut above everybody else. And so when all of this is communicated, it's very, very powerful.
It is.
That's the overall concept. Yes, sir.
No, that's great. And I know what he does, because we are similar as far as how we do things. And I agree with everything you said 100%. Obviously, it all makes sense. Like at Beltway, we set ourselves apart as far as that we are very thorough as far as what we do, respect people's time. We go in, like when you say about booties and stuff like that, that should be necessary. That doesn't make you better than somebody else. That doesn't kind of set a standard. Everybody should be doing those little things regardless. But we're the same way as far as the system that we do. We go in, everybody does the same thing on every call, every time. So it's consistency that the customer can expect. When we do a maintenance, I don't care if it's Tom, Dick, Harry, Sam, whatever their names are, they're doing the same process every time, going through the same thing, and how they present it to the customers. So I love hearing when the customers say, nobody's ever done that before. We try to educate the customer, educate them, present them options to some solutions. Some problems they didn't even know they had. We give them solutions and then they choose what they want to do. I don't, it's not about dollars and cents. Well, it is about dollars and cents, but not to the customer. We just provide options, they choose, and then that's whatever we do. And that's why technicians love to work for us, because I truly believe that, in that they can make revenue and generate revenue, but still be home for dinner at night, where they can do that 3-4 calls and make money and still be home.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, if family is part of your values, that's so important. But that consistency that you mentioned is why franchises are the preferred option when people go out and eat, or they get their oil changed or whatever, because they're looking for that consistency that you just described to a T. Now, here's the funny thing. When you break out your nitrogen and you purge the line set while you're brazing in the line set, what have you, ensuring that there's no carbon building up. Well, I hear. And when you take this stuff that you do and you try to explain it to the customer, they don't get that. They don't get that. Here's what they get. They get that when the other truck pulled up in the driveway, they had all these papers shoved up on the top of the dash, but when your truck pulled up, there was none. In fact, your wrap was clean. There's a armor on the tires. You open up the truck, all the junk wasn't in there, or your uniform. So they perceive your quality differently. And this is what the whole thing about HVAC greatness was about, is the point at which the company meets the customer and that value is transferred and perceived, and everything that goes into that, right? And so, last year we did the consultative service call program, and it was all about doing the service tech through this. This year, in fact, next week we're going to be doing a sales process, but it's more advanced. It's more advanced. I initially called this the HVAC consultative sales program, but it's much more than consultative. And let's see if you are familiar with these concepts, Gil. I'm willing to bet you are. But when you consult and you're analyzing somebody's home structure, their personal and family preferences and needs, all the opportunities to improve, all these different things, you're focusing on the consultation to the logical mind. The prefrontal cortex. I'll get right here in a minute. But the funny thing is, and I remember Zig Ziglar said this, he said, people buy for emotional reasons, and then they justify those purchases for logical reasons. Have you heard that concept too? Yeah. Yep. So you got to do the logic, but what we wanted to do is temper that with the emotional influence. Much of this is based on a book called The 7 Triggers to Yes. Let me back up. The 7 Emotional Triggers to Yes. And so we built within this particular program, and you guys should be doing it in everything, in your marketing, everything else. When you're communicating to your customers have natural buying preferences. And there are 7 different categories where people emotionally buy. Now, here's how it works. I'm going to go a little scientific here. There's a little almond-sized gland inside of your brain. It's called the amygdala. And all external stimuli, whether they're seeing something or they're hearing you talk or whatever, it comes through that little walnut or little almond-sized gland, and it goes one of 2 ways. It goes to the prefrontal cortex, and we start thinking logically, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. I need to think about that. Or it passes through to the subconscious, and that's the emotional mind. And the decision is already made. And so if you learn how to take your information and bypass the logical by going straight through this way, by your processes, you get to yes over and over and over again. And the customers, what they do is they can't help but to move forward when you do this. It can almost be manipulative. I mean, it really takes honest people to do this right. Okay. But once they move into that emotional trigger, I'm going with you, they will then justify it with logic. And I don't know if you ever bought a car or truck that way. I know I have a big 4-wheel drive truck, and it was getting to me in my gut. And then I'm coming up with all this logic. Well, I can use it for the company too. And I can, So, but that's the overall process. So here's a couple of the things that we want to make sure that we do. Okay. So to justify the logic, we need to review, the proper sales structure, the old proven process, step 1, step 2, step 3, because you have to have a linear step-by-step process if you're going to sell effectively and you're not going to miss anything. And you're not going to have customers that are unsatisfied, right? Now, in doing that, you get the emotional purchase coupled with the logic. Because if you only get the emotional, they'll buy from you, they'll get buyer's remorse, and then they're going to back out. You got to have both. Okay. So we got to do that. So we get into the advanced stuff, and most of it is mindset. Most of it's mindset. When you have your head on straight and you've got your beliefs right, you know where if you match this way of thinking with the top 2% of the salespeople out there, and it's not that hard to do, guys. I was a technician, for goodness sake. It took me a while, but I got it. Right. And so when you match that, it is very powerful. Now, of those 7 triggers, the number 1 is what's called the friendship trigger. And that is rapport. That's connected. Now, people can be friendly with you. Don't you mistake that because they're considering you their friend, because they'll smile at you all the way to the point where they say, I want to think about it, or I'm going to get 3 more estimates or bids. Friendly and friendship are 2 different things. You got to cross that, make the connection, and make it deeply. And you got to do it within the first 10 minutes. So we talk about that. We talk about setting and holding the frame strategies. If your customer has one frame and you have the more powerful, you will take the lead of the process without stepping on their toes and making them feel inferior. Somebody's got to be in charge. That's their home, is their decision, but your process and you're the expert and striking that up. So we get into that. 7% of what's communicated is just a spoken word. The other 93% is a combination of body language, tonality communication, and we talk about how to do that, how to communicate with those properly. In X Factor, how to stand out. How to stand out as superior amongst your competition. And I experienced that firsthand because the company does matter. Your marketing does matter. Your unique marketing position matters. And I felt that big time. When I left Lennox, I was a territory manager, calling on dealers. Then I went to Goodman, called on the same dealers, and got treated differently. The company you work for does matter. And you may be one heck of a salesperson, but it really, you really need to stand out, not just as a professional, but also the organization that you're working for, the quality of their work and everything else that you do. Objection prevention strategy is another one. So once somebody has raised an objection, I don't know if you know this, but once something comes out of their mouth, it is 10 times more powerful than if it was just thought. If it was just a thought in their mind, like, well, that's a little high. Once it comes out of their mouth, it's out there and it's public. And now they got to stick to it. And if it's negative, you can quadruple that figure again. So never let your customer get to the point of objection. We have objection prevention strategy. And that's using a process called initiation of verbal anchoring. And this is all NLP stuff. It can run really complicated, but we keep it as simple as we can because we want something that you can use. But sometimes you're going to get objections anyway because they didn't catch what you said, they didn't understand, or maybe they were kind of hung up on a doubt. And you have to have a strategy for that. And we use an advanced negotiation tactic. This is based on Chris Voss's work. Never Split the Difference was his book, and very, very good stuff. So that's an overview of the sales program that we're currently getting ready to release. Now, I've worked with a couple of companies on the private Zoom training, like you know how we do. I'll talk to their training room, and it's gone over really well. So I'm excited about rolling this out. So you guys are more than welcome to participate in that for those of you who may be interested.
That's awesome.
Yeah, cool. Appreciate that.
Yeah, all that stuff and all those things are what you need to learn. I mean, I've been, pretty good at sales over my career. I definitely still have a lot to learn. I'm far from knowing everything, but I do know everything you just said is something that I've been taught, or I found out that I didn't know and I needed to know going down the line, because customers don't like to be liars. That's why sometimes when you ask them simple questions, like as a service technician, this coil looks dirty, I mean, and I don't want to steal this because somebody else uses it. Do you think that's good or bad? And they say bad. Oh yeah, that's bad. And you got them involved. And then when you bring that back to the table and, we're going to clean that coil today. Oh, well, that's a lot of money. Well, Mrs. Smith, I mean, when I showed it to you, didn't you agree it was bad? Oh, well, you know what? Yep, I did say that. When you get the customer involved and you let them see, that's how you start to build value. Let them ask questions, show them, like not just some, cracked heat exchanger in your phone that you've been showing the same customer for fucking 10 years. Like, no, I mean, honestly, ethically showing them that kind of stuff, that process, and you start doing it the same every time. See, people out there, like, you may be good at you're a good technician, you may be good at fixing things, or you're not a good communicator. That's where these processes come in and help you, because fixing it is just part of the process. You can be the greatest technician in the world. If you can't communicate that to the customer, that could be an overall bad experience for that customer. Yet you tried to do everything you possibly could right, and it still ended up being bad. So you got to think about that, because we hear the tech. I mean, you hear Uncle Pete all the time. These guys out there, the techs are like, I'm a technician. I fix stuff. I'm not a salesman. I'm not a selling tech. And guys, we got to get out of that mindset. I know I say it every week, but it's so relevant now because I see it on social media so much. Every one of you technicians out there, you're a selling tech, whether you like it or not. Every time you change a capacitor, that is a bill of goods, a transaction. You just sold something. So be thorough in what you do. And another thing with customers that I found, and maybe this is wrong, but, time equals perceived value. Like when I talk to people about maintenances is one of the biggest things that we talk about. If a guy goes, like, some people are good at selling them, but not good at, maintaining them. You go into a customer's house, you're in there for 25 minutes and you're like, hey, Mrs. Smith, everything looks good. Have a good day. The guy went down, took a Delta T, looked at the filter, everything looks fine. You do that twice a year, then you wonder why the customer never renews. Because you don't ever do anything, you know what I mean? So it's the same concept that, people don't realize that clean truck, that clean uniform, that process, taking your time, doing what you're supposed to do every time that you go to somebody's house is huge, because you only get one chance to make that first impression. And so many people don't realize that.
Yeah. And, we fall in the habit of talking technical as well. And so a lot of times we're just spitting out all of our jargon that, you and I can be excited about all day long.
They don't care.
And they don't necessarily get it. It's, I used to do this class, I speak Spanish. My wife does not speak English. I speak Spanish to that level. So I've lived in South America for about 6 years, and I'm in Central America as we come from here, live in Miami. And I used to do this exercise where I taught Spanish and just throw a couple of English words in there, and people get a sense of what I'm talking about, but they were like, well, what did you say? It's almost like that when you're speaking English, but you're really not speaking their English. And it's almost like you're speaking another language. And so if you can learn to translate these different things that you're doing in a way that they get it. And here's an underlying message, and this is part of what we teach in the program. Everybody all day long, with everything that happens to them, and especially when you're in their house, is thinking one thing: what does this mean to me? That's what they're all about. What does this mean to me? And so if you're constantly answering that instead of talking about, I replaced your nuclear switch, then they can start to appreciate it. So we took in our service call process, and we created, Zeke was actually part of that mastermind group that did this. We created an assessment document that is unique to everybody. And so everything that we take on our technical checklist, we transfer over to the communication document for the customer. We turn it around. It has these visual aids, and it explains every single thing, what this means to me. For example, in the IAQ section, there's a little icon of a house with a thermometer in his mouth, and he's sick, and we have maybe high particulate count, or we have high VOCs. We have another category called danger. And you put something into the category that says danger, and it's got the little sign with danger. We got every category covered. Maybe the danger is to the home. That could be an overflow drain pan situation where we may just ruin the ceiling. That's dangerous to the home. One may be to the equipment. Light and surge protection is a good one, where, if your equipment's at risk, the utility companies get away with murder, and this equipment, it is vulnerable right now without this. And what may be dangerous to the occupants, the people who live there. And you think of carbon monoxide detection and keeping a good ground on the equipment, things like that. So when you start to drop it in these little boxes and you just lay it out there and look at it from that perspective, now your greatness is bleeding through, your value is bleeding through. Everything that you just described, Gil, perfectly, is all of a sudden, hey, I get that. Now you're talking my language. And so that's the goal. And that, as well as all the subconscious stuff that we try to teach our guys to do naturally. And you just add it to who you are when you're interacting with your customer so that it's genuine. And next thing you know, the customers don't go into, okay, I need this broken down. They go the other way. They go, I want the deluxe package, everything that it includes. And I don't need to understand every component. I want that package because it fits my buying style. Maybe my buying style is the trigger hope. That's one of the emotional triggers, by the way. So if I'm buying on that particular emotional trigger, it's because you mentioned this IQ device. My son just suffers all the time. We keep him on medication. If this can reverse this, I make an investment in that based on the hope that this is going to resolve our issues. And so that's a very valid one. And so we use a lot of examples on that particular one. For example,
if it's never offered, Uncle Pete, then they can never have it. That's what gets me is people, Amen. They never say anything and they're like, oh, the customer doesn't want that. Well, you don't know what they want. You don't know what they're banking. It's not your job to decide for them,
Amen. You'll never sell anything you don't offer. And something you said earlier, this thought escaped me because I was following you as well. But yeah, we can't make those decisions for them. And I know what it was. You said that I love it when a customer says, well, the other companies didn't do that. The other companies didn't notice that. The other companies didn't bring this up. That is excellent. And the other one is that I hated was you going back out to your customer and you find a piece of equipment or an accessory in there that you install. And you say, well, when did you get this? We put those in, and they say, I didn't know you did that. Oh, that one hurts.
Pisses me off.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. And then they're not going to know if you don't tell them. And so it's like a customer told me one time, Pete, you're my eyes and ears up there. I'm just down here waiting on you to tell me what you saw. And so when you transition from the mindset of not being pushy and salesy. I don't want to do that, over to I'm a professional master service technician that goes through the consultative process. And if you have me in your home, you're going to get a thorough assessment and you're going to understand completely. Whether or not you buy, that's on you. But you're not going to not buy because I failed to do my job and didn't bring it to your attention. You're going to get the truth.
And that, I'm sorry. And I would say, in that mentality you just said, those are the guys that are out here fucking killing it, making a shit ton of money, and they're honest guys. That's how I sold. I never lied to a soul. I never said anything to anybody. I wanted to try to be better than anybody else that went out there. But my problem as a technician was other guys weren't doing it. So the bosses were like, okay, well, I want to move you up into management. And then I had to learn being a good tech and being a good manager was two different things. So you needed a process to be able to teach other people to do that. Guys, go out there. Like, I had a younger guy ask me, he's like, what does it take to be good in HVAC? I'm like, first of all, you have to give a fuck. You have to care about what you're doing and the people you're doing it for, and then try to be really good at what you're doing and, take the time to do it. That's really what it is. If you can, residential AC is not hard. It's really not. Once you learn it, you're not going to forget it. And caring about the people that you work for, man, like that's really what it comes down to.
There's another word called congruency. And for those of you who are a little unclear on that, congruency means that things fit well together and they're part of a whole. Okay. It's like the oars coming out of the side of the boat, all rowing in the same direction. If you're congruent to that brand, to that personality, then if you're congruent to that brand and you're congruent to honesty and the values of that company, and all of a sudden you come out with some slick line trying to get a close on them, it's incongruent, right? It doesn't fit. And so being congruent is really directly connected to being authentic. And so that's why we do the work. Once we come into this identity, we build this whole thing and all the processes are based on the truth. And now you can just shoot straight. And you never, what's the old saying? You never have to remember a lie if you don't tell any, if you just always tell the truth. So be honest with yourself, first of all, and develop those skills. And so, to your point, Gil, where your competency is not in question. If your management said, if this guy can get his stuff together to a superior level in this area, I'm willing to bet he can do it in this other as well. And so you went through that transition, then you develop business management skill set. And you've got to be eager enough to roll up your sleeves and go in and get dirty and quit depending on everybody else to make these decisions for you, like your SEO and marketing people. You've got to be able to do this kind of stuff and dig in yourself. Right? You won't know everything in the beginning, but stop trying to pawn it off on them. I just want to pay my monthly advertising and then adjust the dimmer switch and the work comes flowing in and I'll get it from there. The world don't work that way, guys. And, business management, entrepreneurship, they require their own skill sets. And by the way, entrepreneurial is different than self-employment. The employee mindset where accountability is exterior goes away when it's self-employment. Now I don't have to report to anybody. When I was self-employed, heck, I'd sit at home sometimes. If it wasn't nothing to do, I'd just chill, sleep in, go play basketball, right? But when you go over into business management, now you're accountable to your business, to your employees, to your customers, and it goes to another level. And so the source of the accountability shifts. So instead of the boss telling you what to do, now you have to build that within yourself as you go through this transition. And that will teach you the self-discipline and the structure that you need in order to be successful. But it's a lot easier. That's why we do it this way. It's a lot easier. Instead of trying to be, a Victor Rancor or, a Gil or a Kelly or a Pete or whatever, you need to be the better version of you. And you got to discover what that is. You need to know your strengths, but don't you dare just play to your strengths and forget your weaknesses. You got to work on those weaknesses, but in a way that it fits who you are. And bam, you'll discover I'm enjoying this again. Yeah. And that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, it is huge. And we see it so much that a lot of guys that are good technicians want to become business owners. And that's great. I get it. That's the dream of a lot of people. I'm not saying that they shouldn't want to do that, but they also need to know that you can be the best technician in the world and be the worst business owner. It's two different skill sets. So that's what a lot of you out there know. And I know I say it a lot, but it's the truth. And I don't say that to scare people away. I just want you to know what you're getting yourself into. I had a guy was like, I was good at install and now I'm learning some service because I eventually want to own my own business. I'm like, well, that's great because you want to know the technical side if you're going to be on your own, but learn some business stuff too before you go out on your own because that's a big part of it. So everybody thinks I'll work for myself. I'll make $200,000 a year. This is going to be great. That's just not always real.
What do they call that? Lottery syndrome. Yeah. Where poor people who are poor all their lives win the lottery and 3 years later they're broke again. So if you're going to learn how to manage yourself and manage money, you kind of, build and reinforce these different beliefs and disciplines and strategies and such. And ultimately, you can grow into this in a comfortable way, as opposed to throwing yourself out there and, sink or swim, which I did. And I don't know how I swam, but I somehow made it because I made a lot of mistakes. I lost my butt a lot of years, But the one thing that we did get well is I got help. I knew Ron Smith. I told you that. Went to his class. I knew Steve Howard. I knew Ron Collier. I knew, a lot of these big names, and learned from these guys. It was very humbling. Tried with me what worked and what didn't, and a lot of stuff they said that should work didn't, and didn't work well for us. Some of it not initially because we just didn't give it its due attention and time, but a lot of times just because it wasn't a good fit for us. Maybe it would work in his world, but it didn't work in ours. But for the most part, those guys knew their stuff. But that's when the big transition happened. And the thing that we got good at, and that's the thing I focus on today. Everybody says, Pete, what's your niche? My niche is where your company meets the customers and the customers go, holy crap, what a difference. This is my guy. This is my sale. This is my company. That's where it's at. And a good rap will get their attention, but you got to have the rest of it. It's got to be congruent. It all has to fit because once you, to Gil's point, once you become inconsistent in some aspect of the way you appear, you become ingenuine in their mindset or in their perception. And now I don't know if I can trust you.
Exactly. And for one, you don't want to work for somebody you can't trust, and people don't buy from somebody they can't trust. So nothing about that trait is going to be good for you in life. So I just, two things I hate in this world are thieves and liars. I can work with a lot of people. Everybody makes mistakes. I tell the young guys that work for us, I said, I've made a shit ton more mistakes than you have. So, that's what the older guys like my dad and all those guys used to tell me. They're like, they used to call me Little Gil, and they're like, Gil, you can't make any more mistakes, or you can't make any mistake that I haven't already made and made worse. So it lets people know that it's okay to make mistakes. Just don't keep making the same ones. But a liar, you can't trust somebody. That's something. Yeah. Zeke said, perception is reality. And that's true. And I really, not to veer off here, but I respect your opinion, that. So I want your opinion on this. I have some shows coming up later on the podcast where it's getting huge in our industry. Is this, venture capitalist stuff, all these people coming in, going to these small owners who may be struggling, or they're not getting where they want to go as fast as they want to be there. And they're coming in saying, well, I can help you get there, but I'm going to this is my piece of the pie. You know what I mean? Like, without going in too deep, I mean, how do you feel about those situations?
Well, I was in business during the consolidation years. And what happened was corporate America started buying up heating and air conditioning companies and consolidating them under a single umbrella. That's where ARS came from. American Residential System Services, I think. Service Experts, that's where that came from. And a host of others. I know the utility company started buying them up in Canada. And ultimately what happened was a whole lot of money was spent and a whole lot of businesses went under. And the reason is they went and they got their business degrees and their marketing degrees and everything else. And they thought that they could run a business as complex as ours. And the truth of the matter is most could not. In fact, a lot of you guys that have been in the business 20 years or so, you've been out there doing your thing, you've internalized things that if you could just get organized into a manual and sell it, you'd be rich. But the information gap that needs to be bridged between what it takes to be successful in this business and I should say the competency level of those who are attempting to do it are still pretty wide. Now there are people who do, and I'll say this, because I worked with companies. One of my competitors there in North Carolina. I tell this story. Old man Morris. He was trying to sell his company back when I was still at Tech, and a guy by the name of Dewey Jenkins bought that company, and he was nothing but an accountant, guys. Knew nothing about heating and air. So he changed the name to Morris Jenkins. And to this day, now I sold my business many years ago, but he kept going. He must have 120 trucks on the road. He's done it, right? But it was a painful journey in which he wore that business hat. He went out, he watched, he was up to his elbows doing all of this stuff. But the corporate types want to sit back and put in systems and not do anything. And that's part of it. Well, that's not all of it. That's just my opinion on this. Another one was, what's the guy down there in Naples? No, Naples, Florida. There's an accountant down there. I forget his name. And he bought a business, crushed it. So these are guys that knew the numbers. I've got a customer right now, and I can't say his name because he's looking for some coaching. He's got a marketing company, wants to come in, take 15% of his company, basically run the office, and he runs the field. And he's like, Pete, should I take it? Should I do it? And, that's a personal call. But the dynamics change when you start bringing other people in. It's tempting. But the reason they're looking at HVAC, essential services, among other things, is that you're sitting on a gold mine. And if you'll take and just get the help you need, uncomplicate your work, get dialed in on your key focus, and you can turn all these other areas of work away if you choose to. Don't try to be everything to everybody. Really get dialed in. And now you can bring in people and train them yourselves. You're going to have to, because the workforce is being depleted. You can hire people based on the right characteristics and your shared values, which means they naturally fit. And you know how to test for that. And they have the aptitude, and train them, bring them along, but keep that training very specialized, and they'll learn quickly and they'll be productive quickly. Easier said than done, but that's the way I would do it today. The world's changing, but I'm sure some of those companies are going to do that. They're going to come in, they're going to be successful. But from what I've seen, when history repeats itself, or it tends to, or what they say, it may not repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Yeah.
We can expect a lot of, I think, a lot of hype. And when the rubber meets the road, I don't know if it'll get the traction that it's saying it will.
Yeah, because you 100% right. They can't replace us, and they know that we're a gold mine. They want their piece. They want to find their way in, and I get it. I know that venture capitalists venture money can be good in certain situations, and I know some people will be successful. So I'm not saying it, but I guess it scares me because, hearing some of the stories that I hear from that happen to different people, and I know some's bullshit, some's not. You kind of take a fraction of it. But years ago, with some of these people who were doing that, and so many owners that were good people got fucked. They ended up turning into an employee of these people. And now they're like, hey, I got your customer base. Hey, I don't need you anymore. Yep. You're fired. Yep. And now this person has nothing to give their family. they're like, what the hell? I thought I was going to help build my business. And now they took my company and there's not a goddamn thing I can do about it, you know? So if people are going to do this, just be careful. Like, just please protect yourself. Like, if it sounds too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. It's that, you know what I mean? It's that simple.
Yeah, you're better off selling than doing that. I work with a couple of guys. If you guys need a recommendation, I know a guy that I turned on to a couple of companies and he sold their businesses for pretty good money, and because he understands how to assess the value. But back in the consolidation phases, I know a lot of guys that they took part of their payment as company stock, which went to zero. And so they lost their butts. To your point, I mean, you nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just scary. Like, I know that you see some of these people out here like Victor Rancourt. You guys all know he's been on here. Victor is a very good friend of mine. And some people feel however they feel. The guy's bust his ass in, 3-4 years having a company to get where he is. But that is very slim. Just because he did it, it was certain variables, a certain situation that worked. It doesn't mean that we can all go do exactly what he did and we're going to have the same results. That's just not how that works. Does it mean, we use some of Victor's program at Bellway and it worked great. Don't get me wrong. I like a lot of it incorporated, but I feel like some people look at people and they're like, I want to be that guy. Like you said, you have to be yourself. It doesn't mean that you can't incorporate some of the things that they're doing, but don't try to be another company. That's like when people like, the company culture, it's been thrown around the last year, fucking candy. I do think company culture is very important. But I love what Miss Stacy Ford said. 2 company cultures, no one can be the same. Every culture is going to be different because what values that company has and what they believe in can be different. The people are different. So when people have the same bullshit on the wall, as core values is integrity. We show up on time. You know what I mean? To me, that's not really core values. That's a bunch of words on the wall. You have to be, it's something you have to live. Like we have what's called an MVP statement. And, one is, that in a nutshell, that we're in this together. It doesn't matter who messed up. It's we messed up and who picks the ball up, that we want every employee to provide a 5-star experience to our employees and each other. And then the last one goes, and I should know these, but I know them by heart. I just don't want to put them on because they're ours, about, people coming to work and helping them grow as a person. Like,
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And, I think Zeke said, little nuggets from training in the comments there. The way that you maintain a culture is you keep people's belief systems in alignment, and their core values in alignment. And because people have different experiences in life before coming into this arrangement, they tend to, indoctrinations and, all this other stuff, they tend to not align perfectly. So in an effort to do that, it requires regular, and I say weekly training in which we take a concept that might be a little controversial, or maybe we're not all on the same page, and we just go through some raw breakdown, real world experiences. We go through it together and we come through the aha moment. Everybody's saying, holy cow, I never thought about it from that perspective. And so we start to unite on some level. And so as a leader, and this is what you have to be as a HVAC business owner, is you've got to be a leader. And, 360 degree leader at that, get out there, but, don't be afraid to roll up your sleeves and jump in there and do what you got to do. But by being that leader, it has a heavy influence on everybody around you. And it allows you to be in control of the culture, as opposed to leaving the guy with 10 years experience over there who basically is a Jekyll and Hyde. You don't know it because you left the room and the other personality comes out. That becomes your culture and you have no control over that. So if you want to be in control, be responsible. And
Well,
if you want to be responsible, be present.
Well, and it's one thing that I tell everybody that's true. Like the comment I made earlier about being a good, like I was a good technician. I was good at sales. I had those, couple $1 million years, which I know people do way more than that. I'm just giving them my personal experiences. But when I got into management, my first thing was like, oh, I'm going to get to be the boss, because I said to my owner back then when I first met him, he said, what is your goals in this industry? And I said, I want to sit in your chair. And he looked at me funny and he was like, what do you really want to do? I was like, I want to sit in your chair. Like, that's what I want to do. And he just kind of laughed. And I always thought like, oh, I'm going to get to be the boss and I'm going to be able to, tell people I'm going to have that authority, but really that is nothing. As I've grown to be like a manager and run a company, I realize that now, yes, they work for me in a way, but really I work for them. If I'm good at my job, it means that I am providing them with everything that they need to be successful, whether it's training, resources, equipment, trucks, whatever it is. And when I really learned that, I think I really started to develop true management skills, that servant mentality. And it took a little bit to learn.
I read this somewhere. Be the boss that you never had, but always wanted.
And that's what I tell everybody.
That takes service. Yeah. You got to be out there serving, helping. One of the guys in our mastermind groups, he owns a business up in Minnesota. If his guys call for help, he'll be in that truck, heading out there after hours to go help, if they need him, he's there. And, that doesn't come naturally for a lot of people. It has to be, ingrained, and sometimes you have to revisit and get clarity on who you are, what you're about. Because if I ask you who you are, where do you see yourselves in 5 years, and where these type of questions, most people can't answer that, but the high achievers, they can. They know exactly where they want to be. And if I ask you today how you treated your employees last week, and you explain that to me, and how you treated your customers last week, and then I come back and ask you, okay, how would the best version of you have treated your customers, have treated your employees? And when you start to see the two differences, you start to see that there's certain qualities that are missing in your day-to-day because you get hung up in the stress and you get distracted, and you get taken off point on your clarity is, this is who I am, this is who I choose to be, and I'm going to proactively set out to do that. And I'm going to be the better version of me. And so this is all mindset, woo-woo, whatever, but it is genuine. It's the real deal. And if you're not using some of these skills, some of these basic tools, you're denying yourself of a rich life that you could be enjoying, not just for you, but for your employees, your family, and all those who depend on you. So the self-work is important, but again, if you want to be a better boss, start by being a better self, a better person, being in touch with yourself. Yeah.
And I always said that I always wanted to be the manager I never had. And not that I didn't have some good ones, but like you just said, with the person that's in your mastermind group, is I will always answer the phone when my guys call. If I have to go out there, I will be there, because I remember being out late at night and calling and getting no answer and feeling alone and not knowing what to do in a situation. Should I do this? Should I do that? And just needing that guidance. So I will never, ever let that happen. One thing that we always say with our team, which Ryan, he's a young guy, but he's an amazing leader for being, 28 years old. We always try to provide, the challenge, clarity, and care to every one of our technicians. Am I challenging that person? Do they have clarity on exactly what I want them to do? And do I care for them? And it's amazing how when you simplify things like that, it really, really goes a long way.
Yeah. And living in the future as opposed to in the past, because, forget about where you are today. Think about who you want to be and tackle today with that in mind. And what that'll do is it'll keep you moving ahead. So this all sounds good, guys. You got to do this. Oh, you got to believe that. but you're going to hear this, you're going to go home, life's going to happen and you're going to forget about it. But when you schedule these things in your day, so I've got my 3 attributes that I want to be a regular part of my mindset going forward. And I put them in my alarm clock on my cell phone, and 3 times a day, the alarm goes off and it reminds me of these 3 characteristics that I need to be included in how I approach my day if I'm going to be that better version of myself. And so actually implementing these, being proactive is where it's at, and it's not that hard. All you got to do is start small. It can be as small as affirmations. I am the best service technician this nation has ever seen in their life, wherever you're starting. And before you know it, you say these, you say these things a few times, you start to realize you're walking a little taller and everything else. And so it's generally good to focus on the things that you're challenged with and look at that better version of where you want to be and start with your affirmations there. But there's other things, visualization, there's other things, appreciation, gratitude. These are little things that are just good routine things to include 5-10 minutes in the morning. And it just kind of sets the tone, right? It's not hard, but it is part of the structure of people who have their crap together. But if you're just going by the seat of your pants, if you get up this morning with no plan as where I'm going to be at the end of the day, guess what? You're not in control. Your subconscious mind is, and it's a spoiled brat, and it's going to take you where you don't want to go. And it could be drinking, it could be drugs, it could be gaming, it could be pornography, it could be anything that becomes these bad habits that the world is throwing at us. And all we really have to do is take charge of ourselves and say, no, that's not who I am. Right. And so these are the types of things that, you got to protect yourself because nobody else is going to do it.
Yeah, no. And you have to I love what you said earlier, really decide what you want in life. And like you said, reverse engineer on how to get that, where I am today is because of work that I put into the past. So I constantly have, short-term goals, long-term goals, weekly goals that I write down. I feel like that pen to paper, you can write things into fruition when you write it down. And I always try to hold, I actually have, it's right here. It's a little book that I use that I write things down, and it's something that I look at all the time. I try to hold myself accountable. Yeah. Of where I want to be and what I need to do it, and then I surround myself with positivity. Like my brother used to always say, in your group of friends, every one of your friends should be somebody who's lifting you up. If you're the most successful person in your group, then get new friends. You know what I mean? It's something as small as this. I always do this. Let me see if I can see it. I have an app on my phone called Motivation, and it just slows. It's real big on the home screen. Every time I look at my phone before I go down to the social media apps or anything, on there right now, never trust a person that has let you down more than twice. Once was a warning, twice was a lesson, and anything more than that's just simply taking advantage. And it slowly gives you little things, and it just keeps giving me positivity as I go through the day. And it's funny how little things like that, it just changes your outlook on how you do things and how you go at things that you do when you change your mindset like that. It's crazy.
Yeah. And let me add to that. This will go a deep rabbit hole. So I'm just going to touch on this one.
It's okay.
We're winding down. But the concept you said, never trust anyone who let you down twice. So if you think of a person who promised to do something and just stood you up and didn't do it, or they promised not to do something anymore, but they did it anyway. They promised one thing and they lied. So basically they lie and they're liars and they let you down all the time. How would you feel about that person? And hypothetically, you'd say, well, I wouldn't like that person very, very much. I wouldn't trust that person, to your point. And so if that's true about other people, how much more true is it about yourself? When you tell yourself you're going to do something and you let yourself down. When you tell yourself you're going to stop doing these things and you let yourself down. And so in order to clear that hurdle, it takes resetting and being accountable to yourself, and basically looking in the mirror one day and say, you know what, I have let you down too many times and this is going to stop. And then ask yourself for forgiveness. I know this is woo-woo, but once you've done that, now you're not going to let yourself down anymore. And you're only going to do positive things. And my gosh, once you can start to trust yourself, you become confident in yourself. And once you become confident in yourself, that self-confidence rises to a level where you can do anything. But it's, you know, it's a process, and it takes steps. And so it is what it is. Again, woo-woo goes deep, but little strategies like that we can initiate, and it'll set the boat in the right direction. All we got to do is keep it on course at that point.
Yeah, that's why I always try to admit positivity out there, Uncle Pete. When I'm in the group, I try to be positive to help somebody. It feels so much better to build somebody up than it is to tear them down.
I love that.
Love that. Yeah, we're just in that, somebody shares a picture of their work, and rather than giving them constructive criticism in a positive way, it's, oh, you piece of shit, you fucking suck, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just, things don't have to be that way.
When we're children, our entire self-perception is based on what adults say about us. You don't pay attention when I talk to you, whatever it is, right? And that affects us and carries us forward. So that's still very powerful to these days. But to approach it like you're doing, by building people up, that third party validation, that external opinion is much more powerful than opinion of myself, because you see something in me that I don't even see in myself. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. So that's very powerful. And that's another great habit of a good leader, in my opinion.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, thank you. I've always been that kind of person that I want to help other people. Like little things. My mom used to say, like, when it came to like Christmas or presents, and somebody asked me like, oh, if you had to pick like 2 Christmases, which would you remember? Obviously, well, one would be the one before my father passed. But other than that, it's always times where I gave something. It's not something where I received it. It's not like, wow. Well, maybe as a child, but as a man, it's always, oh, I gave my wife this, or I remember getting my son this. That made my Christmas. It's not like, oh, I got a new car or I got this. It was nothing that I received. It's what I gave. And I don't know. That's just always been me. That makes me happy to give other people stuff.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And, them appreciating that is your reward, right? So like the one time we swung by one of my employees' house because he had to change the uniform real quick. I said, hey, can I use your bathroom? I go in the bathroom and I come out. I look over on the refrigerator, and there's the note that I had wrote on his paperwork. Great job, Randy. And there it was on his refrigerator. And all it was a small gesture on my part, but it meant something to him. You talk about making you feel good.
Yeah. Hey,
for me, it was just, he finally got his paperwork right. And I made a little comment. Hey, great job, Randy. Next thing you know, it's framed practically. And so the impact that you have on the people around you is much bigger than you think.
Yeah.
So if you keep it positive like you do. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people are those words of affirmation people, everybody likes an attaboy, and that's when leadership comes, and your people. Some of them are words of affirmation people. Some, I forget the different ones, but you can put people in the different classes and find out what means something to them.
Yeah. And I'll give you a tip on affirmations as well. I am a great service technician. That's an affirmation. But if I take it and go and I talk to myself from a third party, just that powerful position we just mentioned, and I say something like, Pete, you're a great service tech, and you are. Remember the time that 3 companies went out there, nobody could figure it out, and you had it running in 15 minutes? Remember that? Not just anybody can do that. You're something special. Now, which one do you think has most impact on my subconscious mind? I am a great service technician, or something like this. So a lot of times you can just record a number of these examples of these type of affirmations with the third party, and play them in the morning, kind of get you psyched up really good before going on a sales call, right? Remind yourself of buddy, you go in with the right attitude and it's a whole different experience. You're bringing this energy in and before you know it, your customer's loving you and you get the sale and you're like, wow, I wish I could feel that way every day. Not realizing that you can, or you could if you try. And so, yeah, it's a little bit of work. It's a little bit of woo-woo. It's not natural. We hate doing stuff like this, but if we do it right and we do it incrementally and we do it strategically, we can actually grow to new levels and enrich our lives and those around us, and provide that lifestyle that we've always wanted to do, both in not just money but time and money, with your family. So all that's important.
Yeah.
I divorced during my business. I would not wish that on anybody. Be at home when you're at home. Don't be at work.
Yep. You gotta be able to turn it off. I said that before. It's easier said than done, but when I come home, I'm home. It's here. Obviously I sneak away and do the podcast, which is why I'm grateful to my wife. So thank you, Brittany, and to my kids. If they listen to this, because of them, supporting me in what I do, I'm able to do this podcast and be able to give back to other people. And the fact that they support me in doing it really is huge, because this does take a lot of extra time that I have to put in that I'm not doing something with them. So when I am with them, my phone's off. It's put away. You know what I mean? I'm with them 100%. I'm not dipping the toe in the water, because that's not fair to them, No,
that's admirable. Great job, bro.
I appreciate that.
I get that. My wife's in the next room too. So, it is what it is. They understand, they understand, but, being present is their payback. If you're able to be present and give to them, then, they understand.
Yeah. I feel like you can always make money, but you can't get time back. And that's why, like, with my technician, or with our technicians, I don't want to say my, like it's singular. I can't tell you how many baseball games I missed from my son and stuff like that, because I had to work. I was doing what I had to do, and I get to go to those now. And now people that work for us, we make it part of our culture. If they come to me and say, hey, Gil, I know it's busy, but my son's got a big game. I really want to make it. Well, guess what? He's going to that fucking game. You know what I mean? Like, my daughter has a dance recital, or hey, it's my daughter's birthday. I want them to have that. And that little bit of appreciation when it is 100 degrees outside and they got to go in the attic, I don't hear a fucking word from them, because they would go to battle with me anywhere, because I would do that for them. I do that with them.
And you should. And you just be careful when you do that. Do it. And don't take that call and then resent it, because it's just going to make you bitter. And I learned that lesson. Real quick story. I had a call. Walk-in cooler was down. It was a restaurant. It was part of a chain we took care of. I drove like 45 minutes to go down, get it running. It's nighttime. I fill out the invoice and I'm charging coming and going. And he's looking at the invoice and he says, you mean to tell me you're going to charge me for driving down here, doing the work and driving back? And I snapped. I said, right back in my house is an 8-year-old boy, and his daddy can't be there with him because he's here taking care of your refrigeration. You damn straight, I'm charging you coming in. And I generally don't get that way, but you have to come to grips with, this is who I'm going to be, and this is how I'm going to operate my business. And customers are going to have to adjust that, because if you start compromising all these things in your life, you're going to be bitter. You're going to snap at others. And worse yet, you can snap at your own family when you bring it all home. So get that clarity. Who am I? Who do I want to be? Hold yourself accountable to that, and watch the quality of your life improve and your business. So,
yep, I agree.
My tips on that.
Yep. I know it's getting a little late. We'll start to put an end to this. I guess before we start to close this out, how can everybody get in touch with you, Uncle Pete?
Hey, I appreciate that. HVAC Greatness, I've got a .com, HVACgreatness.com, and I've got a Gmail account, HVACgreatness@gmail. But mostly what I do is help. I do one-on-one coaching. We do some group coachings, but like more recently, we're doing advanced sales training, getting you ready for the summer. And there's going to be some group training on that, as well as some online work at your own pace later. These types of things. So yeah, the focus is your greatness, how to get more money out of or get the value, I should say, out of the work that you provide, so that your customer goes, wow, this was worth it. Wow, I choose you, not somebody else. And it's a lot easier said than done, as you guys know.
Yeah, it is. And if you guys don't know, you're listening to podcasts out through the day. I know I'm giving you more each week, but there's days in there. Uncle Pete does a podcast, HVAC Greatness, and it's on your YouTube channel, correct?
Yeah, it's occasional. It's not consistent. I'm not as dedicated as you better people.
No, but there's a lot of good. If you check out his YouTube channel, there's a lot of good info that he has on there to be able to check them out. So like I said, if you guys are out there looking, you're a smaller company or big company, whatever it is, and you're looking for somebody to give you honest training that you don't have to second guess. Should I do it? Should I not do it? Uncle Pete's the guy. I highly, recommend that you look out and reach out to him. So
thanks, Gil. Appreciate that.
No, you're welcome. Well, thank you, Uncle Pete, for coming on. I know this time always goes by so fast. You're welcome on here anytime. And let's stay in touch. I know it's been a little bit since we talked, so I'm glad that we finally were able to get back in touch, and we'll definitely do this again.
Me too. Thank you so much, Gil. I really appreciate your time, bro.
Yep. My pleasure. All right, everybody, let me close this thing out real fast. I appreciate all of you guys, man. Thank you so much. A bunch of great shows coming up. A lot of great guests. I'm doing special episodes, not just the Wednesdays. So this Wednesday will be another live podcast. I can tell you who the guest. I'm pretty sure that this is the one that I have. Yes. So just like I told all of you guys that I wanted to get some of you technicians on here to be able to tell your stories. Well, one of you reached out. Mr. Trevor Laws is coming on. So it's awesome to finally be able to have one of those interviews. Somebody just worked their way up to the trade. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Remember, like this video, please comment, let me know what you think. You guys can be in here live, and I will open up the Titan text line brought to you by Yellow Jacket. You guys can call in. So just know that that's all here on the live shows. But yes, like, subscribe, comment wherever you are. This show goes to, Facebook and YouTube every time that I do it. Yeah, make sure you follow all the social media sites. I got to give all that little stuff in there because I do have a giveaway. I was going to get to it tonight, but this week I have some things that I want to give away, and I want to be able to give back to the loyal listeners. All right. So guys, remember, be safe out there. Always make it home the same way you left. Just like we talked about, we all got somebody to make it home to. All right. Do the little things that set yourself apart. All right. Too many guys don't bitch about what somebody else is doing. Don't worry about what somebody else is doing. You only worry about yourself, and keep doing those little things, putting in the work, being thorough, being dedicated, constantly learning, and you will set yourself apart from your colleagues, other companies, etc. Keep doing that. All right. I love you guys, man. I appreciate each and every one of you. And remember, if I can help you in any way, please reach out to me, HVACuncensored@gmail.com. I don't know everything. I'm far from a know-it-all, but fuck it. If I don't know the answer, then we'll learn it together. That's been my motto this whole time. Let's be better together. Let's learn it together. All right. Thank you guys, man. Stay safe out there. Thanks to Uncle Pete for coming on. Go check out Pete Ramsey, HVAC Greatness. And until next Wednesday or till next time, I'll talk with you mofos later. All right. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the HVAC Uncensored Podcast. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Instagram, or email us anytime at HVACuncensored@gmail.com. Now, get back to work. Shut this down. The views and opinions shared on the HVAC Uncensored Podcast may not necessarily be the views and opinions of our sponsors or guests.